You have to have visionaries. You have to have people that will think outside of the norm.
We have to be given the power to tell our own stories.
We all want to say our piece. This is a crazy time.
What they care about is what it means to them.
You have to not think like society thinks.
This is a fight about power. Who has it and who has the right to use it?
We're having a reckoning about what public safety can, should, and must look like.
It's about a broader question of representation, who gets to create the images and define how we see the world.
They want their voice to be heard, they have to get involved.
Finally, we get to tell our truth and tell our stories like our stories matter.
What's going to bring people together is equality.
The love that we have for each other is the shortcut to true human happiness.
You start to see how it's all connected.
Every single person around the world can create a movement.
Hello, I'm Jean Meserve, and welcome back to Power of Purpose. We're glad to have you with us. During our sessions today, we're going to be exploring what happens when businesses and organizations that you support through your purchases or investments or through social media decide to use their clout to make a difference. We would love to have you engaged in our conversation. If you use the chat function on the right of your screen, you can engage with one another and also submit questions for our panelists to answer. We also want to thank once again our underwriter, KPMG. Thank you, KPMG, for your support of the Atlantic's journalism. And now, let's go to our first session. And now for a session on communicating on COVID-19, please welcome Kara Sabin, the CEO of Sundial Brands, Lisa Sherman, President and CEO of the Ad Council, and John Donvan, a contributor to Atlantic Live.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Karen. Hi, everybody else. I'm a trained professional, and yet I muted my mic, so that has now been corrected. We are going to be talking about, as was just pointed out, the intersection of purpose with the moment we're in the pandemic, and that moment really is focused very much, I would say, on the issue of getting more Americans vaccinated. And there are large organizations who have chosen to step up and play a role in communicating that message. And two of those organizations are represented by each of you who are taking part in this conversation. I want to start with you, Lisa, because the Ad Council has done a really, really fascinating thing and has funded and helped produce a documentary short that is encouraging people who are hesitant about vaccines to get vaccinated. And in doing so, it has recruited as voices in the documentary, encouraging taking this step, descendants of the Tuskegee Airmen. Now, the Tuskegee Airmen, I think most of us know, were a unit that fought heroically in World War II, and then afterwards were betrayed in the worst possible way by being recruited into an experiment in which they were not treated for the condition that they had. They were not told that they were not treated. In fact, they were told they were being treated, and it was an incredibly unethical, trust-busting forever kind of action by the U.S. government. And now, in order to persuade people who are hesitant about vaccines, you're recruiting their descendants, which seems like those would be the people who would continue to have this trust. So what's the thinking on this kind of flipping it all on its head? What are you getting at?
Well, happy to talk about that, and very happy to be here with my friend Kara and you as well, John. I think just to give a minute of context, the Ad Council back in earlier this year launched our most ambitious public education effort in our history, which is really to address this issue of vaccine hesitancy. And the goal has been throughout our efforts to move people from being vaccine hesitant to vaccine confident, by providing vetted, fact-based information, answering questions, and things like that. And I think it's fair to say that we've made some great progress in the U.S. Since the vaccines have been available, but it's clear that our work is far from over, especially when it comes to the more skeptical folks who are really taking a wait and see attitude. And so as we dug into this to really try and understand these specific audiences to help us get across the finish line, we could continue to hear this notion of the Tuskegee study coming up as an example of distrust among Black audiences where we are seeing higher levels of hesitancy for not only the vaccines, but frankly for public health more broadly. And so there's no doubt that this issue, this experiment, this tragedy is really what it was, has played a pivotal role in undermining confidence in the Black community. And as we were able to learn more about these extraordinary families and the next generation of the men in the study, we saw a real opportunity for them to share their stories and to talk about what happened, what's changed, and how they're really honoring the legacy of their fathers and their grandfathers and their great-grandfathers. And what I found so fascinating is that all of the folks that are in our film have really dedicated their lives. They are working full-time, whether it be in public health or public service, to reshape the narratives and build trust through their efforts. And it's really extraordinary to see how they've dedicated themselves to use their voices to help educate and inform and motivate others. And we believe that their stories are so powerful and they themselves can be trusted messengers that would really and can really help others, encourage them to learn more about the vaccine so that they too can make informed choices.
So these were individuals, these descendants were people who were already committed to working on the trust issue. Their careers were already focused on this. There was no kind of, we have this crazy idea, your grandfather was treated badly by the US government in regard to science, but we want you to trust. They were already working on the trust issue, these individuals.
Well, I think that they clearly took it upon themselves to reverse the trend and to use the terrible things that happened to their fathers and grandfathers and change the direction, and that's what they've dedicated their lives to.
Kara, thanks for joining the conversation as well. Tell us about you're working in the cosmetic beauty industry, working for Unilever. You run Sundial, and your company has really taken it upon itself to step into this conversation, to use messaging, to use your contact with your customers to encourage vaccination. And my question is sort of kind of why is that in your lane? Why is that something that the company would, number one, presume that it can do and would be good at and would have successful outcomes at, as opposed to, again, your specialty is making your customers feel beautiful. This is talking to them about being vaccinated, getting healthy. How do those two things connect?
It's a great question, John, and it's a pleasure to be here with Lisa. Unilever was actually one of the founding partners on the Ad Council effort. It's up to you, so really, really happy to be here. So for Shea Moisture, which is our biggest brand within Sundial, we actually believe that our guiding principle goes above and beyond selling amazing beauty and personal care products, which we do, but that we really have this higher order purpose to create equity within the Black community, equity culturally, socially, and economically. So, why is this in our lane? Because we are a brand that feels that we are here to be of service to our community. And really what our community needs is vaccine education. We know that Black and Brown communities were disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 last year. And so in terms of the vaccination, we wanted to really accelerate the education and understanding of the options. So we launched a program called Shots at the Shop. And the program is in partnership with the White House COVID response team, the Department of HHS, the Black Coalition Against COVID, University of Maryland, and Official Black Wall Street. And the purpose of the program is to really leverage the impact and the importance that barbershops and salons have within the Black community. You mentioned earlier in speaking with Lisa, this notion of trust. And so I think trust is really foundational and important for the Black community. And barbershops and salons are often some of the most places where you have the most intimate and pivotal conversations. And so the program will allow barbershops and salons who apply to receive $1,000 grants to retrofit their salons to become vaccination sites if they would like to, or to really just be healthcare advocates within the community.
So that means that at the salons and barbershops, the people who buy in, the owners, or the managers of the places, would themselves not only be providing the facility for vaccination, but would be doing some of the messaging for you. And are you, if I'm correct about that, are you supporting them in that?
Right. We through through our collection of partners that we have, and there's more information at Shea Moisture Fund, FUND.com, for people that want to learn more. So we have tapped partners that can enable those salon owners and barbershop owners to do that. And what is also really important is we talk often at Shea Moisture about the linkage between health and wealth. So we understand that COVID-19 is a health issue, but we also know it has an economic impact. And so these entrepreneurs, these business owners, this is in service of them both financially, but also for the community in terms of being healthcare advocates.
And since you mentioned barbershops and salons, are you also targeting men in this campaign?
We absolutely are. My grandfather on my mother's side was a barber for 65 years out west. And so we didn't want to leave the barbershops behind because, you know, as I said, both salons that women may frequent or men who go to barbershops within the Black community, these are really treasured institutions within our communities.
I know that you've both of your organizations have looked deeply at the causes of the hesitancy. You're collecting data. You're not just shooting in the dark at this. I want to ask you, Lisa, and I'll come back to you with the same question, Kara, is what do you know about the constituencies you're trying to reach, in addition to the one that we were discussing already, the trust issue? But what else do we know about the causes of their reluctance to sign up for the vaccine? By the way, is it necessarily reluctance, or is it also maybe they just don't have the means to, have somebody take care of their kids while they go off to get vaccinated, or maybe there's not a center near them? So give us a more nuanced view of why we seem to be hitting a slowdown period in vaccination.
Well, we've done a lot of work in really trying to understand the issue of hesitancy, and it is quite nuanced. But at the core of hesitancy is trust. And that trust and the issues that are driving trust for individual hesitant groups is different. So, there are some people that really wonder if they can trust a vaccine that was developed so quickly.
Which is not a crazy question, is it?
No, it's totally legit. Totally legitimate question. So was there this trade-off between efficacy and speed? And so, and then for others, like we were just talking, whether it's the Black community that has, had decades of inequities with healthcare and government, of course, their trust is driven differently. We're seeing trust issues now and hesitancy among rural communities where they're questioning the sources of the data that they're getting, and can they be trusted? Can they trust the media? And so this effort has really required very specific surgical understanding of these audiences and then ways to reach these audiences, not only through messaging that answer their questions and really are vetted and sort of data and science driven, but that the messengers like the barbers that Kara just talked about, or the folks you deal with in the hair salons, or your sorority sisters, or faith-based leaders who are very important to many of these communities, those are trusted messengers that can help break down the barriers to trust. And we are engaging all of them in this effort.
And Kara, how are you tracing the effectiveness of Sundial's campaign in this issue?
Well, I'd first like to piggyback on what Lisa said, and then I'll get to the effectiveness. In terms of the nuance that we're seeing within the Black community specifically, I don't have to even look past my own family. So within my family, the older people, my parents, step-parents, my father-in-law, they were very eager in the first line to get the vaccine, no hesitancy whatsoever. Our children, who are teenagers and young adults, they were the ones that were the most skeptical. Part of that is because when you're younger, you think you're invincible. But I also think they're more susceptible to misinformation because of how they consume information in media. So I do think there are nuances, and I think what the efforts that the Ad Council is leading and the work that we're doing at Unilever and at Shea Moisture will hopefully be able to micro-target and really get to the heart of the issue. In terms of measuring our effectiveness, a decent part of my job and many people on my team is speaking to entrepreneurs, speaking to business owners, speaking to people within the community, working with them, developing partnerships and programs. And so we feel anecdotally, we have a very good understanding of what some of the concerns are, what their constraints are, what is needed, and that's the work that we do. But we also, later this year, will be issuing our first impact report, which can really break down all of our investments within the community and where that goes in the programs that we've supported.
And again, in the question of nuance, Kara, I had mentioned this in a question to Lisa. We're talking about a slow uptake in vaccination being an issue. We're talking about vaccine hesitancy being involved in that. But is vaccine hesitancy the only reason that people are slow to uptake the vaccine at this point?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, we had a prior conversation about this, that some people, they would like to get the vaccine. They just don't have the means to. They don't have the opportunity to.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that comes into play as well in terms of people's ability to get to a vaccination site. I know certainly earlier this year when they first became available, I was really struggling to help my parents find a vaccination site. So I definitely think access and the ability to navigate that early on was definitely a factor.
Lisa, in working with corporations who are partnering with the Ad Council on this, are you finding that corporations are sort of, very, very, very interested in this, getting into this? Are they hesitant perhaps because the issue has become so politicized? Does it take perhaps a certain amount of corporate courage for the groups that you're working with to be your partners in this?
Well, I'd like to start first by saying that, the Ad Council was founded on the promise and the potential of our industry's capacity to do good. And never, I think, has the calling been clearer. And when we reached out to our partners, honestly, everybody raised their hands and they not only contributed financially, like Unilever and many, many others, for a fully funded private sector initiative, but they're looking to really roll up their sleeves and engage deeply, much the way Kara is through Shea and many, many others. None of us are going to get our lives back and be able to move forward until we are rid of this horrible pandemic. And vaccination is the key to that. And so it has been all hands on deck. I also think companies, have incredible influence and are I think they're at the top of the list of the most trusted people among media, governments, NGOs. And I think they are taking that responsibility very, very seriously.
Kara, this is the question that I think always needs to be thrown into the conversation about power of purpose, is that one could cynically say that companies are pursuing these objectives also in the pursuit of profits, that if their customers are demanding these things, this is how you stay in business, and that that there's a certain cynical calculation to stating this commitment and pursuing this commitment to do good by your community, and community broadly defined. So just take 30, I'm sure you've heard the question many times before, but just take 30 seconds to respond to that observation.
Yeah, sure. And it is true. We know, particularly with younger consumers, they really feel it's important to their decision-making process that the brands that they consume take action to better society and humanity. But from a brand and a company standpoint, it really is in our DNA, and it's how we're founded. Our North Star is making a positive impact on the community and using our business to facilitate that. And that is a very different mindset than purely being focused on profits and, adding on some kind of community impact as an afterthought. It really is our North Star at Shea Moisture, and for Unilever more broadly. Our commitment is to make, we're focused on being people and planet positive. And so it's really just how the brands and the businesses are wired.
John, I would just jump.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Barbara.
I was just going to jump in and just say that, companies like Unilever, and there are many right now, really have a North Star, and they have a set of core values that are both immutable and apolitical. And I think with these values that are established, when issues arise, it becomes very clear what the response should be and can be from corporations. And that is not performative. That is wired into the DNA.
What have your organizations learned about how not to message for encouraging vaccination? What do you not say? What's the wrong approach?
Well, my perspective, I was just going to say, from my perspective, we want to respect people's right to choice and their agency around their decision making. So, I think what not to do is to shame people or to, talk down to people, be patronizing. That would be what we're not focused on. What we do focus on is providing transparent, clear, and accurate information and actionable information. So not just talking at a high level, but really facilitating and enabling people to act on that.
I couldn't have said it better.
Lisa, you were going to jump in on that. Oh, okay. Well,
that's exactly what I was going to say. People don't want to be told what to do. They would like to be able to make informed decisions, and I think we want to provide them with that information so that they can do that for their friends and for their families.
But you're also in a world where there is misinformation that's deliberate and targeted and politically motivated. Just talk for a little bit about that, Lisa, in regard to, in a sense, you're on a side. You don't want to have a dog in the fight. You want it to be science is speaking the truth. But how do you navigate the fact that your effort has opposition that is calculated and deliberate?
Well, we knew going into this that we were living in an environment where misinformation was rampant, and we knew that this could be politicized. The issue itself is not political in any way, but it has been politicized. And we, frankly, keep an eye on what trends are happening. We work with an organization called the Bully Pulpit, and they are literally every day tracking key narratives that are false, and the ones that we believe can have the greatest harm on our efforts. We then identify what counter messaging should be, and we equip our trusted messengers with that information. Again, not telling people what to do, not calling it out as false, but providing the accurate and fact-based information that we know they need.
Tricky stuff, it sounds like, but it sounds like you've thought it through deeply. Carrie, we have a question from Eileen who asks, great gaps occur when we work in silos. Those with boots on the ground can collaborate to reach different communities, to frame messaging, build communication strategies. How do we go forward? That's a big question, but you're thinking about it all the time. How do we go forward?
Yes, I think our Shots at the Shop program is an example of what that person mentioned, where corporations, there's the perception that we sit in this ivory tower, or in the work from home environment, whatever your home situation is, and that we're detached from what's happening on the ground. And so Shots at the Shop is exactly designed to address that, to provide the resources and the direction of our brands and the rest of the people that are in our consortium, and partner with the salons and the barbershops that are on the ground, and filter the resources to them to enable them to make a localized, hyper localized impact on their community.
Well, Lisa and Kara, you've both been inspiring. I want to thank you for joining us, and we're going to leave it right there.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Kara.
Up next, new approaches to inclusion. I'm joined by Corey Pauling, Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer and Head of Corporate Social Responsibility at TIAA.
Corey, it is great to have you with us today. George Floyd's death influenced many businesses and organizations in the sense that it focused more attention on diversity and inclusion. I'm wondering if it changed things or influenced things at TIAA.
Absolutely, and thank you for the invitation to participate. No one could have predicted the events of 2020. I think we were all looking forward to the start of a new decade, optimistic, hopeful, really reflecting on where we had come from, where we were going. And the year greeted us in ways that were truly unprecedented. In the inclusion, diversity, equity, and corporate social responsibility space, the first responder aspect of our strategy and our impact was never more apparent. We were, as an organization, faced with an important fork in the road where what was required of us was an authenticity and a vulnerability that met the needs of our workforce as well as that of our clients. We were in a space where we understood people to say, I have to experience and share this with my organization. I can't leave it at the door. I can't ignore it. I'm at home, I'm working, I'm afraid, I am horrified, I'm angry. I can't just show up for work and put that all to the side. And so as an organization, what it required of us was a certain willingness to connect with that level of voice and that level of vulnerability, provide a forum for that. And importantly, our message ultimately became how can we serve that need, but also inspire? And so what we did is we launched a program called Be the Change. And it's a simple message, very simple message, but it's something that means something every day and throughout our organization. You can be the change in how you interact with a colleague. You can be the change in how you advise a client. Being the change is something that you can do every day. And so our platform really connected. It really enabled people to feel that we cared, because we do. It enabled our workforce to share things that they had not before and to trust that. And it really sort of opened new doors, created new expectations, built a certain ambassadorship and loyalty. And it's something that we're committed to for the long haul.
How did you build that conversation within your organization? At what level did it take place, and how deep did it go?
It went from bottom to top, top to bottom. It felt like it was from a grassroots perspective, but it was also very much something that cascaded from our upper executive leadership ranks. We rolled out Be the Change through a call that was attended by almost 7,000 of our associates. and led by our CEO with the backing of our board, where our CEO said explicitly, as a Black man himself, that he understood that he had the same level of emotion, reaction, horror, and yet he knew that we still needed to lead. We needed to connect, and we still needed to inspire and share. We needed to awaken some eyes to some of the realities that many people still face. But we ultimately needed to lead, and he made that commitment plain, and that gave us the momentum that we needed to go in directions that we had not before. And by directions, I mean everything from certainly events and programs that really focused on the entire associate from a wellness standpoint to a dialogue standpoint, involving family members and thinking about how we all can influence, but also from the standpoint of how we can shine the light on ourselves as an organization and do better. So we have always been very focused on data analytics and metrics, but we did that in a way and were transparent about it in a way that was new and that really helped bring home our ongoing commitment. And then lastly, we did programs, outreach programs to our client base, talking about Be the Change and how it resonates not just for us, but how it would resonate in their workspaces as well, because it does. It transcends industry. And so through that approach, comprehensively, top down, bottom up, internal, external, change became our cry, and it has really, really been impactful.
TIAA has a pretty remarkable history in that, as I understand it, the first African-American CEO in this country was at your organization. You've mentioned your CEO at the time of George Floyd was African-American. Your current CEO is African-American. I wonder if that puts you in a position that is different than other organizations in that you already have buy-in at the highest levels of your organization.
Absolutely. So, prior to the 3 Black CEOs that our organization is proud to have had, and as you say, that is unprecedented. Our history really is rested in this concept of inclusion. In 1918, when we were founded by Andrew Carnegie, the idea was that financial wellness needed to extend beyond the wealthy. To underserved communities and particularly to educators, deservedly so. And so the idea that there needed to be these vehicles for educators to retire with dignity is who we are. And that is inclusion. That is saying that underserved communities need to be able to have access, need to have voices, need to have their needs served. And so fast forward from that principle, which really was, again, financial inclusion at its core, and now we've expanded it in so many directions, led to us diversifying our board in the 1940s with the first appointment of a woman, in the 50s with the appointment of a Black man. And these are things that predated many of the big moments in the civil rights movement. So as an organization, it really has been how we've led courageously, and very proud of that. And so fast forward a few more decades, the fact that we are the only financial services organization that has had 3 CEOs, African-American CEOs, is something that we're so proud of. And even beyond that, what we're proud of is how the company has grown by leaps and bounds under that type of pioneering leadership, including the energy and the vision that is now being set by Tashonda Brown Duckett, our new CEO, an African-American woman who has successfully led large financial services organizations and is bringing that energy and that passion to our organization. And I couldn't be happier about it. Is truly who we are.
Corey, D&I in a way is built into, I hate this phrase, but built into the DNA of your organization. Other organizations don't have that, and one sometimes hear it said that D&I officers are aside. They don't really have the influence and the clout that they need to have within their organizations. Is that true? Do you buy into that?
In some organizations, that is true. At TIA, it is not true. I'm an employment lawyer by trade. I am an engineer. I have always appreciated during my 15 years at TIAA the access and the voice and the honesty, the authenticity with how we address business issues and how we look at ourselves, how we shine the light on ourselves. My voice as the Chief Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Corporate Social Responsibility Officer is sought. I am at the table with our CEO, with our board, talking about our opportunities, talking about our successes, and talking about where we need to go and how we need to be bolder and more courageous and more transparent. We are taking this to our core business based on the strategy that we have set forth. So an organization can make the commitment, but there are organizations that do not. One of the things that is often a telltale sign is organizations that hire a chief role, but then don't support it through resources, staff, things that are really necessary to move any type of business strategy forward. If all you have is one person, there will be some severe limitations to the impact that can be made. In my organization, I have a full staff, and we are connected to every line of business. We are connected to our clients. We are connected to our workforce. And as I say, we have access at the highest levels of the organization.
Corey, you've mentioned that you use data to undergird your efforts. So what is the data showing you about the impact this is having on recruitment and retention, on employee morale, on customers, on your business?
Absolutely. So one of the data points that we are most proud of is that in a year of tremendous turmoil, we saw record engagement from our workforce, and not just within our workforce, but within populations within our workforce who had trended typically as having the lowest engagement. So we saw record engagement from our Black and Latinx populations, and we attribute that to the way in which we were able to authentically connect and provide a forum for voice. We are also very proud of indicators from our business resource groups, where we're seeing a higher rate of promotion, because what we say is associates go to our business resource groups and become leaders. And these are folks who are already engaged and connected. They're wanting to go to the next level. They're giving discretionary effort. They are ambassadors, and we want to reward that. So those are two important indicators for us that say we're doing things in a way that is connecting effectively. In terms of opportunities, we have also taken on proactively a number of things that we know to be spaces where we can do better. So we are really investing in the equity space. We're talking about certainly pay equity, and holding ourselves accountable. But beyond pay equity, we see pay equity as a symptom of bigger issues. So we're talking about performance rating equity. We're talking about mobility equity. We're talking about development equity, and really making sure that we are building in processes and systems that beyond just events and moments and talking points, that we're building systems that will make these things that we do every year routinely, and that we analyze and share and we strategize based on what that is telling us. It's a really important thing to use data to influence. It has to be well beyond values. You have to get beyond values. You have them as core values, but the way to really influence for where you have to strategize is through analytics and data that tell powerful stories.
Well, if the data tells that story, why aren't more organizations doing the kinds of things that TIAA is doing?
Oh gosh. Well, if I knew the exact answer to that, I perhaps would be in your chair. But what I would say is that this is a journey, and that organizations are at different levels of buy-in. Many organizations are just waking up to the reality of the world in which we're living, and just how diverse it is becoming. Many industries still think, oh, well, we don't need to care about diversity. It is what it is. But the facts, the demographic data, census data, talent is telling us that these populations are more diverse than ever. And their expectation, not as a might have, but their expectation is that they're going to go into organizations and offer that talent fully for who they are. And they expect to be served fully for who they are. And so, what I say to organizations who are still sort of trying to figure it out is you really don't have a choice. You have to have a game plan for inclusion, diversity, and equity, because in order to have talent, and every organization needs talent, you're going to have to be able to attract people who are going to be more diverse than ever and will have expectations accordingly. We also say that from a client standpoint, you have no choice. One size fits all does not work. You have to be able to anticipate the diverse challenges and needs that diverse folks have, where they're going to want to be able to speak to them and serve them in ways that are unique to their perspective and their worldview. So organizations are just waking up to that. And oftentimes it comes through clients, where their clients will say, I don't want to serve you because I'm LGBTQ plus, and you don't have products and services that are geared toward me. And so when organizations hear that, oftentimes that's a wake-up call, again, through talent and branding. But this really is becoming something that differentiates you in whatever marketplace you're in. Unfortunately, some companies are farther along than others. But I think that last year was a platform for many to say, we need to understand this better and we need to do more.
Corey Pauling, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Corey Pauling is Senior Vice President and Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer at TIAA.
Thank you for having me.
And now for a conversation on the future of charities. Please welcome Richard Shadyac, President and CEO, ALSAC, the awareness organization for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. John Donvan is back to lead the conversation.
Hi, Rich. How are you?
I'm good, John. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. And great to have you in this conversation, because we're talking about organizations and having a new sense of purpose. You're with ALSAC, which is the main fundraising arm for St. Jude's Hospital. I want to talk a little bit about, actually a lot about St. Jude's in a little bit. But the really interesting thing is that one could make the argument that a nonprofit organization such as yours is already in the purpose game. You're already mission driven. You're already trying to give back. You're already working with the community. That you're the essence, the definition of what corporations are trying to experiment with, trying to move into, and trying to learn. And I'm wondering, Rich, do you buy that argument? Are charities, have they got mission and purpose figured out, or do they also need to do more beyond the core mission of whatever it is they do? In the case of St. Jude's, providing free, no-cost healthcare to kids in critical conditions. Are you set, or do you need to grow and learn in this regard?
So, John, first of all, thank you for having me today.
Sure.
I believe that all not-for-profits, to the extent that they're able, should actually do more. The mission is core to what we do. So we're all about finding cures and saving children's lives, right? And we've been about that since 1962, when we opened our doors in a segregated city and welcomed kids from all races, creeds, religions, and backgrounds, at a time when kids would literally be turned away at the door because of the color of their skin. So we changed all that. That's one part. That's the mission, okay? But you know what? As ALSAC and as St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we also need to be good corporate citizens, and we need to give back to our communities as well. And there are numerous ways that we can give back. We do this at ALSAC, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. You know, we work with other not-for-profits. We volunteer in our community. We established a master's in not-for-profit management at the University of Memphis. We have call center operations at a couple of our universities here in our city. So we're always trying to improve the quality of life in our community, making sure that all members of our community are lifted up, as well as at ALSAC, raising the money that's necessary to operate this life-saving mission at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So to the extent that not-for-profits have that bandwidth to support beyond their mission, I challenge all of us to give back. There are ways we can all give back.
And so you're saying and making the case that St. Jude's was in this mindset since its founding 60 plus years ago. Broadly speaking, however, do you think that a lot of nonprofits tend to sit on their, let's say, self-satisfaction that they're already in the good doing business, and that the main service they provide, their core mission, suffices in terms of their place in heaven on this one, or are organizations by and large also always thinking about the other ways in which they can have an impact on, say, their employees or the community they live in or the environment in which they're working?
Look, John, I don't want to cast judgment on my sibling charities. I just don't think it's fair.
Rich, I do want you not to cast judgment. I want you to talk about this world, about whether there needs to, whether the nonprofit sector could be better at this, doing more than this.
Look, I think we could always improve. It's really straightforward, okay? I think every organization, including not-for-profits, can do more, but not everyone is in a position to do more. We're in a difficult time in the not-for-profit industry right now, John, right? We're recovering from a pandemic and the ensuing economic fallout from that pandemic. And we just heard about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion and the calls for social justice. This recovery in the not-for-profit industry has not been even. Not every not-for-profit has benefited, as a result of what's happened during the pandemic. So I think we all ought to give each other some grace. But for those of us that have, it is absolutely critical that we contribute into the community. Look, one of the things that we can do for sure, and every not-for-profit can do this, is boost the amount of diverse people in our organizations. Okay. Unfortunately, the not-for-profit sector is not nearly as multicultural as it should be. It's not representative of the population as a whole, and we need to do better in that regard. And that's something that every organization can do. But I do want us all to be mindful that this has been a difficult time in the not-for-profit space, and not every organization thrived during the pandemic. While giving was up, it was uneven. There were certain sectors that did not fare well, including the sector that we're in. Thankfully, we bucked that trend. But whether it was healthcare, whether it was the arts, some did not do well. So I think we should all give each other grace, but there's always opportunity to improve.
What about just the issue of the wage paid to staff? St. Jude's has been really out front in this one. But is that an area where you feel some nonprofits could do more, some nonprofits can't do more?
The answer is yes. I think not-for-profits can do more and should do more. I was one of the first organizations in the city to make sure that we had hourly wages that started at $15 an hour for our full-time employees. We have call center operations, and that's not necessarily the going rate in our city. But I genuinely believe that everybody deserves to have a living wage. So I think that whether if you've got hourly employees, we need to lift those people up. If your budgets allow it, and then we all should be looking critically at the salary basis of our organizations. Look, I found in my organization, candidly, you get what you pay for. And you've got to be willing to invest in top-notch executives if you expect to move the needle on your mission. So I would challenge all of my fellow CEOs, to the extent that your mission allows it, to really think critically about compensation. And if you have the budget to do this, and you can go out and get extraordinary talent, you can, because you know what? The up-and-coming generations, whether they're millennials or Gen Z, they want to work for purpose-driven companies like not-for-profits. So the talent is out there. We need to go get it, and we need to be competitive, because you can make a good living in the not-for-profit industry while doing good, John.
Okay, we need to take a side trip down towards the founding of St. Jude's and ALSAC because it's a great story. I don't know if you can compress it to 1 minute and 30 seconds, but it goes to the mission conversation we're having. So tell me the story about your dad, Danny Thomas, St. Jude's, and ALSAC.
Well, thank you for asking the question, John. So I'll do the abbreviated version quickly. You got to go back to the 1950s. Danny Thomas was a struggling actor and entertainer, down on his luck, and you know, back in the 30s when he came up with this idea, his wife was pregnant with what would turn out to be Marlo Thomas. He made a promise to St. Jude to, if he found his way in life, he would build him a shrine. Basically, he was saying, should I get a real job or should I pursue my passion as a comedian? And he decided to pursue his passion as a comedian. And St. Jude, he got a job the very next day as a singing toothbrush. Fast forward a couple of decades, he remembered that promise, and he went around the country asking people who were primarily Lebanese and Syrian. Danny Thomas was Lebanese. One of the persons that he approached was my father, who was a Department of Justice lawyer in Washington, D.C. And he said, Mr. Shadyac, Dick Shadyac, help me build a children's hospital, a specialty children's hospital in a segregated city, Memphis, Tennessee, where we're going to treat all kids regardless of race, creed, religion, or inability to pay. And we're going to welcome these kids from day one, okay? And we're going to tackle an incurable disease, leukemia, which had a survival rate at that point of 4%. 4%, meaning 96 out of 100 kids who would get diagnosed would pass away. Things were so dire then, John, that moms and dads were told to celebrate half birthdays, because their child wouldn't make it to the next birthday. And my dad asked one question. He said, Danny, why are we going to do this? Why are we going to build this institution in a segregated city, welcome kids from all races, creeds, and religions and backgrounds? And Danny said, to say thank you to God and the United States of America for giving my grandparents, their parents, the opportunity to come to this country and to make a life. We weren't always welcome here.
Let me jump in there because we have a couple minutes left. You've just made the case that St. Jude's is an exemplary example of a charity and a nonprofit and has had a sense of mission from the beginning. And what I'm curious to talk about in the last couple of minutes is how you would now interact with corporations that are looking to do their own purpose-driven initiatives. Are they looking to partner with you? Are you a sort of off-the-shelf solution for them? And has that, just talk about that, and has that been a positive for you? Is that a complicated relationship? Is it not enough for them simply to make a donation to you if you were trying to advise them on how to be purpose-driven?
Well, look, there's a lot there. So we are blessed to have the support of many corporate partners, okay? But I don't think that we're an off-the-shelf solution. In order for this to work for a company and also for a charity, it has to be a true partnership. And a company has to approach corporate social responsibility or corporate social justice with authenticity. It has to become part of their DNA. It has to become part of their why, their purpose, and charities can help them fulfill their why. And there's a lot of value for companies to be considering corporate social responsibility. Their employees expect it, especially Gen Z and millennial employees. They want to work for purpose-driven companies, not just charities, but purpose-driven companies. So they're going to look to the company and say, what are you doing in our community? What causes are you supporting? What do you stand for? And I would challenge corporate America, and we're blessed, as I said, with many corporate partners, to really attach themselves to causes that are consistent with their own missions. And you're going to find that it's good for business. I brought a stat because I thought it was so compelling. 88% of consumers would buy from a purpose-driven company. 66% said they would switch brands for a purpose-driven company if that was a cause that they believed in. So it's good for business, and fundamentally, John, it's the right thing to do.
Rich, thanks so much. For a lot to think about there, and I want to thank you. We're going to leave it right there. One note from me, in an earlier panel, I misspoke. I said that the Tuskegee experiments were conducted on the Tuskegee Airmen. That was incorrect. They were a group of primarily black pilots who fought in World War II. Again, I misspoke. I meant to reference the experiments that occurred at the Tuskegee Institute beginning in the 1930s. All of you who commented on that to correct it, thank you for that, and thank you for the correction. My apologies for that. And now back to Jean and the program.
For our final session, The View from the C-Suite. I'm joined by the CEO of Patagonia, Ryan Gellert. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Great to be with you, Jean.
So Patagonia is renowned for its activism, and it happens to coincide with your brand. You're very active on sustainability and environmental issues, and of course, yours is a company that manufactures and sells outdoor clothing and gear. So is your activism part of a marketing strategy?
I think it's very different. I think our activism goes back to the very beginning of Patagonia. The company is still owned by the same gentleman who started it, and he started it as, he was a self-taught blacksmith, making climbing equipment for himself and for his friends. And one of the things he realized early on was some of the damage that the equipment that he was building, pitons that you pound into the rock and then remove, was doing to the natural environment. And so he made a bold decision back in the early days of when he had a tiny little business, to get out of that piece of it and transition to a less environmentally impactful way of rock climbing. And I think that was kind of the beginning of seeing the nexus between the impact of our business and the need to protect wild places around the world.
And activism is very important to you personally, is that correct?
It is. It absolutely is. And I think, I've been involved in a lot of social activism earlier in life, and progressively more so on the environmental front. And my last job with a company called Black Diamond, which is focused on climbing and backcountry ski equipment, and certainly increasingly so in my time with Patagonia.
So you've said that Patagonia is moving from supporting activism to being engaged in activism. Explain exactly what you mean and how you're demonstrating that.
I mean, I think that, I think about the 48-year history of Patagonia as kind of different chapters in a book, and we continue to, things that we embrace and that we do, we continue to pull them forward, but add to them over time. And I would love to tell you that we didn't feel the need to engage directly in activism because the world didn't feel like we needed it. But the reality is, I think the climate and ecological crisis is an existential threat to humanity. I think it's one of our own creation, and I think it's getting worse, not better. And so over our 48-year history, some of the earlier chapters, as it were around supporting grassroots activists and giving them voice and giving them money and trying to build community and help educate them on some of the things that they may needed a little propping up on. And I think what we realized at some point is we need to step more affirmatively into it. And so whether that's championing access to the ballot and voting rights, which is a really topical issue right now, or it's a variety of things we're involved in on more directly environmental topics, working to preserve and protect Europe's last free-flowing rivers in the Balkan Peninsula, where there's about 3,500 hydropower projects queued up. We're working to prevent the extension of aquaculture, open net pen fish farming, and in other sensitive areas of the world. Variety of topics like this that we're working on, but these are but a handful of current examples.
You have a program called WarnWare. Explain to us what that is.
Yeah, I think WarnWare it's a program. I mean, we operationalize it as a program. I think of it almost more as a philosophy. And I think that the simple version of that philosophy is we really want to see people engage with product, not just expensive things like homes and cars, but also simpler things like apparel in our case, and see themselves as owners, not as consumers of those things. And so we believe that one of the biggest things we can do to help mitigate the climate and ecological crisis through our business is help people keep their product in use longer. And so the way we operationalize this philosophy of WarnWare is, number one, really try to encourage people not to buy things that they don't need, which I know sounds a little bit strange for a for-profit business, but we're really serious about that. Also doing product repair. If you've got a product from Patagonia and it's in need of repair, send it to us and we'll take care of it. And that's really over the lifespan of the product. That's not got some time box around it. And then some of the other things that are newer are buying back product. If you've got it, it's usable, but you're done using it, send it back to us. We'll give you credit against a future purchase, and we'll resell that product to ensure that it stays out there and extends its usable life. And then finally, when products at the end of life, get it back to us, and we will use the best existing technology to upcycle or recycle the product.
So what percentage of your products now are recycled or upcycled?
So as far as at end of life, it's still a relatively low amount. And I think the critical element of that is that we are committed to using the best existing technology. And so some of that product we've got immediate solutions for. Some of that product we're making investments and or reaching agreements with other companies that are working on, taking mixed materials down to base materials so that they can be reused. And some of those products, candidly, we don't have good solutions for right now. So we take them back and we're holding them as we try to develop better solutions. So we're still very much in the early phases of this, even though we've been at it for a very long time.
What are some of those products for which you don't have solutions at this point?
Mixed materials are some of the most challenging. And so that's an area that we have put a lot of focus, a lot of it, some of it through, using our own internal R&D resources, quite a bit of it through our internal venture capital fund, where we make investments in small startups that are trying to help solve some of these problems so that we can scale them across the industry. But the use of mixed materials, which is really common in technical product, and mixed materials, in case it's not clear, is you say a polyester mixed with a natural fiber or something in the construction of a garment.
You still use a lot of nylons and other synthetics in your gear. Can you get away from that?
We can, and we will. We will not be using any new virgin petroleum-based materials after 2025. So we've been using recycled materials. We've been turning, old soda bottles into polyester for 25 years now. So this is not a new space for us. I think the challenge for us is creating the infrastructure that there is enough availability of recycled materials. And ultimately, the big idea, of course, is product becomes additional product. You can build it, you can take it back to base materials, you can turn it into something else. And the infrastructure required to do that, from collection down to the science to break it back down and respin it, is something that's still developing. But after 2025, we're done with any new virgin petroleum-based materials.
What if you don't have the technology to do it by then?
We've made bold commitments internally and set pretty high commitments for ourselves in the past, and we're gonna have to figure out how to deal with them. And if that means taking the business backwards or carving some products out, then that's ultimately what we're gonna have to do. I think back to the mid-90s when we came to understand the impacts of conventionally grown cotton, and Yvonne, our founder and our owner, gave a challenge to the organization at a time when about half of our product was made with cotton. And he said, look, you got 18 months to convert everything to 100% organic cotton. And, the first response was, it's not possible. And, his response was, well, you're wasting time. The clock's ticking. You have 18 months. And so since the mid 90s, for over 25 years now, we've used nothing but 100% organically grown cotton. And I think that we need to treat this the same way, as a way of lighting a fire under ourselves to make it happen.
So this is all about supply chain. Do you think you've actually been able to make a significant impact on the products that are flowing up that chain?
I'm not going to sit here and pat ourselves on the back for that. I think that the way we keep score, this business, our mission statement, we've simplified it. It's always been focused on minimizing our impact and then using the business to drive positive change. But we've simplified the wording down to something very, very short, which is we're in business to save our home planet. And so I think when we sit back and we ask ourselves, how are we doing against that mission? And we overlay questions like you asked, which is, do you think you're solving some of the biggest issues in your supply chain? Look, the health of the planet is not getting any better. So I think we have got a tremendous amount of work in front of us. I'm proud of the work that all of our teams have done. I think we've made a lot of progress on some of the bigger issues in our supply chain, but I'm reminded all the time of two things. One is the reward for solving a problem is an invitation to a bigger problem. And if you're continuing to look deep in your supply chain and all the dark corners, you realize there's a lifetime of big problems to solve. So that's part of it. And then the other part is taking all of that into context about the health of the planet. And we're not moving in the right direction.
I understand that Patagonia's ultimate goal is to be carbon neutral or perhaps even carbon negative. Where are you on meeting that challenge?
That's probably the biggest challenge that we have. I think it's the most complex issue that we navigate. And I think that what's clear to me is that we're not going to be able to do that alone. And so, a lot of companies have made big claims. We're going to be here by then. And it's tricky for us because we have always felt like we don't really want to talk about things we aspire to do. We want to talk about things that we are doing so that those solutions can be scaled. And we don't want to make claims and take credit for that before the fact. I do think that there is a need to communicate the ambitions that all of us have around carbon neutrality and our carbon footprint. So this has been an uncomfortable place where we feel like we need to project forward, talk about what we're going to do, at the same time that we're not clear exactly what's going to allow us to get there. So maybe a shorter way of saying that is we have a carbon problem. And so we're doing things that you would expect us to do in the use of recycled materials and relying on renewable energy sources for all of our operations, warehouses, stores, and otherwise. But I think some of the harder work is really around deeper levels of circularity. And I think ultimately it's going to require that we are building coalitions throughout the industry, and that's outdoor industry and broader apparel, around carbon insetting and factory energy source and efficiency conversion around the world. And that's tough work, but that's foundationally important.
Is that coalition being built? Are you making progress?
We're in the early parts of those conversations, so I'm not going to take credit for the fact that we're well down the path. I will tell you that that's where I think that's going to be the unlock for us. I think the other place, and this gets into carbon credits, which I think make us, we're pretty uncomfortable with because it's an underregulated space right now. But I think that also investing in nature-based solutions and large-scale conservation, natural carbon sinks, I think is going to be a critical part of the future for us as well. So, how the math works and how we add all that up is one part of the conversation, but what we can accomplish both within our own supply chain and then in addition to that, I think is where we're focusing our energy.
So there's a term that's come to be used called greenwashing. A lot of companies proclaiming that they are environmentally pure or at least conscious. How does a consumer tell the difference between a company that's doing the real work and one that isn't?
First of all, I get that question all the time. And what I think really underlies that, and the way I like to reframe it is, look, how do we believe anything you're saying? And my first response is the fact that people are cynical about the claims of business is exactly as it ought to be. And that applies to us and that applies to me as well. So, I'm answering your questions, providing some information. I'd like to think we're quite transparent in what we communicate online. But my suggestion to everybody as you look at the claims from business is be cynical. And then if you're really interested in understanding, look at the body of work and really ask tough questions and look at this. I'd love to tell you that there was a simple answer to how you can kind of look on the care and content label or the equivalent of the ingredient list of a product and say, well, this checks all the boxes. I don't think it works that way. I think it needs to, but it doesn't work that way right now. And so I don't think that there is a shortcut to really looking at the body of work that companies are doing. And I will tell you this. We're often described as this sort of leader or paragon in the field of sustainability. The reality is we're not a truly sustainable company. The definition of sustainability is pretty clear and we don't meet it. If anything, we're a responsible company. So I would also warn anybody from sort of grabbing onto those claims that the world's most sustainable or totally sustainable, whatever else, that doesn't hold a lot of water.
You mentioned earlier, Ryan, that you've gotten involved in the voting rights conversation and action around the country. Someone can see with your brand that there's natural synergy with environmental issues. What's the synergy with voting rights?
I think that a healthy, functioning democracy is absolutely critical to everything we do and everything we believe. So I think that there is a red line that goes right from healthy democracy and voting rights are a critical element of that to the work that we're trying to push forward. I think that in this climate that we're operating in, there is so much misinformation flying around and there's so much polarization that I think we've just got to be able to cut through that. And at the end of the day, I believe that people on all sides of the issues, there's a lot of static in the system, but the reality is I think we all want basically the same things, which is an opportunity in life and a healthy environment and a chance for ourselves, our families, and our friends.
Well, not everybody sees the voting rights conversation that way, as you well know. And I'm wondering what kind of blowback you've gotten.
Well, I agree with your point, and we've gotten a lot of blowback, and we've gotten a lot of blowback on a lot of issues over a long time, and I think that goes to this step that we have taken somewhat reluctantly, but we're embracing it, from supporting activism to becoming much more directly engaged in activism ourselves. So whether it was suing the last administration around their reversal of protections on Bears Ears National Monument in southeastern Utah, or its voting rights issues, or a host of other things, I think for better or for worse, blowback is part of the dynamic in taking positions like this.
As a CEO, it's your job to increase value of the company. How do you balance that making money against doing good?
I don't think it's a trade-off, but let me also say, because I think that this really goes to the unique ownership that we have here at Patagonia. I don't see adding value to the organization as a critical piece of my job on an annual basis. I see what's a critical piece of my job on that piece is being in alignment with our ownership about how we're thinking about the business. And that's the size of the business, that's the impact of the business, and that includes the financials of the business as well. So I think this notion, and the reason I'm doubling down on this, is I think sometimes there's belief that a business is not it's failing if it is not moving forward and getting bigger. I think that thinking is a lot of what's gotten us into the position that we're in. I think this race for infinite growth, it's a broken model. Now, I think to your question, how do you balance the tension of being unapologetically a for-profit business and one that exists to do more than just maximize shareholder wealth? I think that's the great challenge of Patagonia. I also think it's the great opportunity for other businesses. I love business. I love strategy. I love working with people. I love the fact that the capitalist markets don't care if we live or die. We have to earn our place in them every day. I love the fact that the business gives us the resources and the platform. It also gives us the trust with our community through the products we make to advocate for issues that we feel so strongly about. And then finally, what I love the most is that going back to what I said before, I think that the climate and ecological crisis is an existential threat. And I think to solve something this big, we need every part of society engaged. Government doing what governments were created to do, solve big problems, marshal resources, create strategies. On the other end of the spectrum, we need individuals making decisions in their lives personally, but also engaging as part of civil society. And then we need business in the middle. And the fact that we operate from the bowels of the business sector and are proving that you can run a profitable and vibrant business and at the same time do more than maximize shareholder wealth and focus on growth, I think that's a unique place to occupy.
So you mentioned these various components. Without corporate involvement and corporate activism, can there be change?
I don't think so. No, I think that governments are in many cases behind business on this. I think, and I'm talking about the environmental topics. I think on voting, and I go back to that because I think it's really topical right now. I think the business sector, I applaud businesses for stepping up and making claims. They're starting to offer opinions on topics like this that have been sorely needed for a long time. But let's be clear, it's nowhere near enough. And there was a great opinion piece in the Washington Post recently that really challenged businesses to, challenge government and business to co-create a pledge that said, these are the things we are committing to relative to voting rights. And it was everything from the support of current legislation to taking paid advertising away from social media platforms that engage in disinformation and don't adhere to the standards that they set up for themselves, and a whole host of things in between, paid election time and otherwise paid election, making election day a paid holiday and so forth. Look, build that pledge and I'll be the first to sign it. We're all in. And I think that I think it's critically important, and the business sector writ large needs to step up.
Ryan Gellert, we'll leave it there. CEO of Patagonia, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
And that concludes our event today. I want to thank all of you for joining us and for your contributions to this virtual event. We also want to say thank you to KPMG, our sponsor today. We thank KPMG for their support of the Atlantic's journalism. We also want you to know that the annual Atlantic Festival will be going forward in late September. It will be virtual this year. It will be bigger and better than ever. It also will be free. Look for more on that in your email. You will be getting more information soon. And that's it for us today. Thanks for being with us. Stay safe.
You have to have visionaries. You have to have people that will think outside of the norm.
We have to be given the power to tell our own stories.
We all want to say our piece. This is a crazy time.
What they care about is what it means to them.
You have to not think like society thinks.
This is a fight about power. Who has it and who has the right to use it?
We're having a reckoning about what public safety can, should, and must look like.
It's about a broader question of representation and who gets to create the images and define how we see the world.
They want their voice to be heard, they have to get involved.
Finally, we get to tell our truth and tell our stories like our stories matter.
What's going to bring people together is equality.
The love that we have for each other is the shortcut to true human happiness.
You start to see how it's all connected.
Every single person around the world can create a movement.